Sonids to warp thrust. Someone was counting down. Thrust against planet surface set to power 3. And someone, down in engineering, was really keen on getting off this rock. Negative, Scarroth snapped back quickly. Power 3, too severe. Warp thrust was used to speed between the stars, not for liftoff, even from a thinly atmosphered, low-gravity dead world. There were too many things which could go wrong. Warp thrust from a planet's surface had not been tested. At power 3, this is suicide. The voices urging him on fell silent at that. Of course they would. Please advise, he said curtly. Eventually that keen voice in engineering came on the line. Scarroth, it must be power 3. It must be. Typical. The refuge of the Jagaroth in definite absolutes. Scarroth twisted his face into a cynical expression. Well, as cynical an expression as could be conveyed by a face that was a mass of writhing green tentacles grouped around a single eye. As pilot, Scarroth was in charge. The one to push the button. If history remembered this at all, it would be his fault. He knew that it was a stupid decision, but then again, from an evolutionary point of view, the Jagaroth had made a lot of fairly stupid decisions. 10 sonids to warp thrust, prompted the countdown. Was there a trace of desperation in the voice? Scarroth ran his green hands over the terminal. If the Sephiroth had been working properly, warp control would have been a mass of status readouts, all of which he had been carefully trained to simultaneously process. Instead, most of the panels flashed up requesting urgent software updates, or were simply blank. Scarroth was relying on his instincts and the voices filling the module, and the rest of the crew seemed happy to leave it up to him. Advise, he repeated, hoping to hear someone speaking sense. The response that came was weary. Scarroth, the Jagaroth are in your hands. Without secondary engines, we must use our main warp thrust. You know this. It is our only hope. You are our only hope. Thanks for that, thought Scarroth, his tentacles now positively quivering with cynicism. And I'm the only one directly in the warp field. In other words, I'll be the first one to go. I know the dangers. That was as close as a Jagaroth had ever come to asking for a rethink. Once they committed to an idea, no matter how lethal or ludicrous, the Jagaroth stuck to it. Confirming his thoughts, the countdown came back on, sounding quite determinedly chipper. Whatever, something was going to happen now. 3 sonids, 2, 1, went the voice, as though unaware that the sonid's days as a unit of measurement were about to be very firmly over. Scarroth had a last attempt. What will happen if it all goes wrong? If the atmosphere and gravity combine with the warp thrust to do something really unexpected and horrible? Starting with me? Well, what's the use? Arguing with the Jagaroth had only ever ended in death. Scarroth pressed the button. At full power, the Sephiroth glided majestically up from the surface of the desolation. The idea of staying a moment longer here had appalled the crew. Why stay here, on a dead world fiddling with repairs, when we could go somewhere else and maybe wipe out another species? The omens were good. A tiny fluctuation caused by a fuel leakage seemed to right itself. As the sphere rose, the claw-like legs tucked themselves neatly up underneath. For a moment, the sphere hovered there, glowing with energy, magnificent, expectant. Then it shattered. Directly inside the warp field, Scarroth was both intimately aware of the ship falling into itself and also strangely removed from the experience. Nothing seemed certain, except